Cool. Well, we're live. Sweet. Um, yeah, so as far as like um I know that so my next video I wanted to do about like story and why it's really important, I guess, now in today's landscape of things. Because if you look at to me, if you look at all the fronts, whether it be like movies or books or like politics or even just like local community stuff, even like city stuff,
Right.
it's all pretty divisive, I guess. Not I guess,
Oh,
but I mean
very
it
divisive.
is, yeah,
Yeah.
it's all very divisive actually, just objectively divisive. So then, but as far as like story goes, like story can be, in my opinion, it can be a way to really learn and grow from. Like if you think about like Jesus, for example, he always used parables and stories to like that we can like connect to and put ourselves in those shoes. Or if you think about the turtle and Kung Fu Panda, he like always gives these kind of like analogies and stuff that you can kind of place yourself into, or like kind of you can um yeah, like learn from.
Yeah. This is
So
kind of like
then
I always thought of the stories of stories are always very important. They historically very important. I mean,
mhm,
you go down the street, you ask any person off the street, hey, what's your opinion on the Greek society back during the ancient times? What do you think? What do we think about their agora system? Like, I don't. What are you talking about? But if you
mhm,
ask him who Zeus is, if you ask him who like Aphrodite is, if you ask them about who Helen of Troy was, they're probably like, oh yeah, Helen of Troy, the war and Achilles and on stuff like that. They'll
mhm,
probably know because it's told to us through story, and it's kind of what we're
right.
interested in. We're not Most people are not interested in facts like that of any kind of thing unless they're particularly interested in some subject matter. But
Mhm,
however,
mhm, mhm,
human beings, we are always interested in stories because it's not just about the story themselves. It's usually about what we can take from it. A good story is not just surface level. A good story we can learn lessons from it. We can take something from that story and apply it to our own lives, or we see something in that story that can inspire us or get us through some problem. I always remember that one story that Neil Gaiman told about Coraline, where a fan contacted him and said that she was going through a horrible time, and she read Coraline and said that if Coraline can get through all that mess, then she can get through whatever she's going
mhm,
through. And it's kind
mhm,
of like
mhm.
I think everyone who's seen a movie or had a favorite movie or had a favorite story has gone through something similar where they find comfort in someone else's struggle and seeing them succeed, or they find inspiration
Mhm.
in a story that's like that. And so I think that's why stories are very, very important. One of the most important things that the human race can produce. And gets us enlightened in other cultures, other perspectives, other
Right.
philosophies. It teaches us lessons. It inspires us, and it creates a whole new thing that we can look into and take with us through over the years. Even though those civilizations are gone now or have changed so much that they're almost unrecognizable.
Right. Yeah, and that's a great point. I actually kind of think I remember I think I was in like third grade or something like that, and lived in Colorado, and my mom was supposed to like pick me up from school or whatever, and there was a blizzard outside. So I remember I was like waiting in the cold, like kind of shivering, and obviously she was running late because it's a blizzard outside and snow and the road is really bad. But I didn't know that. I was like I don't know, 8 or something, you know. So then I thought in my head of Rugrats, and I thought about Tommy Pickle saying, "A baby's got to do what a baby's got to do," and then I just started walking home because I was like, "Well, if she's not going to pick me up, then I'll just start walking home." So like even like someone like Tommy Pickle inspired like an 8-year-old to like walk home in a blizzard. She didn't eventually like pick me up and was like scolded me for walking home in a blizzard, which rightfully so. I totally understand that. Um, but yeah, but it was still like that thought of like, oh man, like if this person can do it in this story that's a cartoon, like I could I could do it. Actually,
Right.
kind of think of it too, like Star Wars theory. Actually, that's like kind of his big story. Is that whenever he was going through like chemo and stuff, Luke Skywalker was actually a huge inspiration to him to like get through these things. Um, yeah. So like, actually, what would be? Is there like a story or a character that you have kind of drawn inspiration from, like through something that was particularly difficult? And I mean, you don't need to go into detail or anything, but like, is there any kind of character that you maybe go back to often to kind of get inspiration from, or what does that kind of look like for you?
Well, one of my the characters I had growing up was Superman. I made a whole
Mm.
video about the guy, but like
Yep. Yep.
Superman, he always came in to save the day. He was always there to do the right thing. He was just. It was there to make sure that to lead by example.
Hmm.
And so I kind of gravitated towards characters like that, and they kind of made the world seem a little bit better. That there are because Superman's not unique. Actually, he's an exaggerated version of a person that really exists. Like there are really good people that exist in real life.
Hmm.
Um, but he kind of highlights like what a good person is and what a good person should be. And I was really into King Arthur and the valiant chivalrous
Hmm.
knights.
Hmm. Hmm.
When I was growing up and everything, I was really into those and how they were honorable, how they were good, and of course, Disney movies, the early ones, before they turned to the dark times. but
Exactly. Yeah.
but the heroes there, they were doing heroic things, even if they're an outlaw like Robin Hood. It's because
Hmm.
they were only outlaws because the people in charge were evil, like King
Right.
John II and the evil sheriff and all that stuff. So it's like they were always there to be honorable, to help save the day, to be kind, to help those who couldn't help themselves. So I grew up with those movies, and they always kind of stayed with me. How heroes should be.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, come to think of it, the Lion King. So, Lion King is my favorite Disney movie of all. Like, it's my favorite of all time. Simba, I think, is an awesome character because he goes from like he doesn't know that he didn't kill his dad until the very end.
And
Um,
until he comes back, yeah.
yeah, which is like crazy. Man, like he thinks that he really thinks that he killed his dad, which is insane. And he of course runs away, like rightfully so. Like he's trying to escape it, you know. But then he's like, hey, like I have a responsibility as a king, and I'm gonna do what my father says. Because his father doesn't say, hey, you didn't kill me. His father just says, hey, remember who you are. Like remember who you were designed to be, you know. And then that's when he's like, oh man, actually I'm getting chills just thinking about it. That's just yeah. But it's like his dad tells him like, hey, remember who you are. Like that's the important part. It's not like, hey, you didn't kill me, you know. It was, hey,
Right.
remember, because him remembering who he was is more important than whatever, you know, sin or whatever evil that he thought that he did. You know what I mean? And then he faces that and he's redeemed and he ends up saving the kingdom and all this whatever, you know. But that's like my favorite story of all time, and that's like just a Disney cartoon, you know. Um, yeah, so that's like, yeah, I mean Disney used to come up with some bangers, man. Like, oh,
I think
so good.
Mufasa's up there. I think Mufasa's up there as like one of the most iconic dads in
Yes.
cinematic history.
Yes, yeah, I agree. I totally agree. Yeah, so that being said, what's as far as like the political climate now, um, what how would you say that like specifically for today, like why is not just story but like good story, like why is it important now to um like really pay attention to those things or like to go back to like why would you say it's like story is important in today's kind of political climate, I guess?
What stories are always there. It's another quote by Neil Gaiman where he put I think it was in Coraline as well where he misquoted J.K. Chesterton. He thought it was a quote by J.K. By Chesterton, and then found out it wasn't. So it was kind of like stories are more than true, that because they don't teach us that dragons exist, they show us that dragons can be defeated.
Right.
So and I think I think it was fairy tales, but I think it's stories in general. That's kind of true for stories in general, and it's important to have good stories because it teaches a good story will yeah, on the surface teach us good lessons. Like a good story will teach good lessons. A good story will show us bad guys losing and good guys winning, or what happens if good loses and evil wins.
Hmm.
But also a good story could just be about exploring humanity, exploring the human condition, exploring truths of ourselves that we probably wouldn't get otherwise.
Hmm.
We get something like this and like No Country for Old Men. These darker
Hmm.
stories that we can also explore that aren't they don't necessarily end well or happy, and don't necessarily star heroes or traditionally people who would traditionally be heroes, but they do show humans being human and under
Hmm.
extraordinary circumstances. And we get to see that all their perfections and imperfections and everything that they have to their name and try to overcome struggle after struggle after struggle. What happens when
Hmm.
they get tended by greed? What happens when they get tended by lust? If you get tended by gluttony even? And
Hmm.
what happens if they fall, what happens if they succeed. And these are kind of stories that we see for decades, going thousands of
Hmm.
years. We had stories like this that help inspire us and show us these different aspects of ourselves, diving into desire, diving into fear, terror, and we can't help but wonder what it'd be like to be in that situation. So I would say good stories are important because they show us they always show us something true. As
Right.
the stories are lies we tell to show true things. We
Oh,
just wrap
whoa,
it
that's
up in
cool.
something great. We just wrap it up in something interesting and intriguing and dramatic. We make it something appealing. That's why like any story, any movie that's based off a true story, it's not one for one.
Right.
They have to change it so it fits a nice structure, so we can understand, because that's how we understand story. We understand the structure and development. And okay, so this leads to this leads to this. So that's why it
Hmm.
kind of has to change. But because some people might say that, oh, that's dishonest. It should be like the real thing. But no,
Oh, no way. Yeah.
we're going to the story, you're going to the movie so we can see a story, so it can express to us the heart of the story. Like this, it can the real life events can be confusing and convoluted. It might not be so straightforward or straight cut to make a good movie, but we can take that story, the real life story, and we can find the beauty in it, and then we can
Hmm.
distill that lesson, distill that beauty, put it into a good story, a
Hmm.
movie, a book, a novel, whatever you want to put it into. And then we can express that story, and then we can see the beauty, we can learn the lessons that that story could teach us. Despite the fact it's not going to be like a one for one, it is going to be a story that we can attach to, that we can remember, and that we can look into and see something greater, something grander, something that we can take something from.
Hmm.
And that's always been the purpose of story, to make us better, to help us explore, to teach us good lessons, to make us feel comforted with those good lessons, with righteousness, with nobility, whatever it is. And so today's climate, the reason why people hate these stories is because they're very empty. They're not
Mm.
they don't teach us anything. I mean,
Right.
a Mary Sue does not teach us anything.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
We don't get any lessons out of the female character walks in and this wins. Like there's no
Right.
lessons in that. It's just there to
Right.
make
Yeah.
the writer feel better. That's it.
Right.
Whereas opposed to Luke Skywalker, for example, or even Neo from the Matrix, they walk
Hmm.
in kind of on the bottom rung, bottom level of society, and then they climb their way up through suffering and challenge and obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, and they're able to, through extraordinary means, overcome these things and become heroes.
Hmm.
And that's really important, because the truth of the hero's journey is that it's not actually the hero's journey. It's originally called the monomyth, um, because it's a journey that we all go through, and we all have to go through it, through this journey of maturity. And that's ultimately what the hero's journey is, a
Hmm.
journey of maturity. It's we all start off as the naive farm boy, and then we have to step out of our comfort zone.
Right.
We have to start growing and challenging ourselves, growing skills, and stepping out of our comfort zone into the unknown, into something that allows us to grow and challenge ourselves, or
Hmm.
else we'll never grow up. We'll
Hmm.
just end up like some grown up kid, some neck beards. I get neck beards.
Right. Ooh, that's
It's
gross.
kind of
Yeah.
how it goes. So that's
Yeah.
a story. Ultimately, stories, they help us grow. They help us know that we can, if we're into a challenge, we can overcome it. And
Hmm.
so that's why good stories will always be important.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it to me, it also like it kind of gives hope as well. It's like it's not like because like if you look at all the worst parts of every story, like the hero at the time doesn't know that that's the end, right?
Right.
Like, but then we do, so we like can hope for that character, um, which is that I like hope is such a powerful thing, It's like even if like your particular political candidate doesn't win, or like even if whatever, it's like there's still like you can always hope in something. And it's like, oh, I could hope like Luke Skywalker hoped, and I can hope like Simba hoped, and I can hope like I don't know, Neo hoped. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think yeah, and you're right. I mean, a good story I think really matters because I think it also like good storytelling, especially in today's climate. I think it I think it means even more because it's like, hey, even in the midst of all this kind of garbaggio, there's still a writer who like cares enough and respects you enough as an audience to like write a good story. You know, it's like, hey, even though the climate is crazy, I still trust you to figure out what it is that I'm like telling you, rather than like it being spoon fed or like I don't know, just writing a bad story, like because you don't think that you'll be able to handle a not a bad character, but a broken character. You know.
Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's like, yeah, I mean, that's a yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. Also, what are your so my thoughts right now as far as like how stories are being told? I think we have an exposition problem in storytelling nowadays. Like even with like some fantasy books that I'm like if you go to Barnes and Noble and just like start reading these kind of different fantasy novels that are like really popular, like there's a huge like exposition problem as compared to like Lord of the Rings, you know, or even like Dune or something, you know. It's like and Dune has its own exposition stuff, whatever. But it's like,
I read kind of, I hadn't finished Dune, but I started reading Dune, and does
mhm,
have a lot of exposition, but it only dumps it on you when you kind of need to know
right.
the context of it.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and that's what I was actually telling my wife was like I'd be reading Dune and I'd be like, oh, I mean, it's like it's weird there's a lot of exposition, but it feels like appropriate, you know? Like it feels like an appropriate amount of exposition to kind of get you through the story respectfully, you know? Um like if you think oh I'm sorry. Yeah, so like if you think of like I read this book. I literally just judged a book by its cover. It was a the cover was like this tiny little man with this big old dragon kind of looking at it. And totally judged a book by cover. But I started reading it, and it started off with like, Dad, will you please tell me that old story that you always tell me? And he's like, Oh, I've told you that 300 times, son. And he's like, Oh, just tell me one more time, Dad. He's like, Okay. And he, like tells him the story and like breaks down the whole history of the whatever. And you're like, dude, that's like be more cliche, you know, like that's like it's awful,
The
you
old
know.
story.
Yeah, the old, oh, you know, the old stuff. I've told you 300 times. Oh, please, just one more time, Pa, please. And you're like, oh, get out of
I
here,
mean,
dude.
I
It's
think
awful.
Princess Bride kind of did that, but it was like playing with the tropes. Like it knew what it was
Right.
doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's and like in doing it with like satire or like Scary Movie is a great example of that.
oh
Like it does
yeah.
all the things, but it's like it's well done. It's like very well done. Or like even with stuff like there was this not Jennifer, what's her name? The really big lips. Julie Roberts. That's her name. Sorry. It's like I cannot think of it. So there's a Julie Roberts on Netflix where like I told my wife, I was like, we're gonna click on this movie, and I bet you in the first 5 minutes they're gonna do an exposition dump, right? And we clicked on the movie, and it was like the first scene that you pop into is this guy, like he wakes up in bed and Julie Roberts is, like running around packing and stuff. And he's like Melissa or whatever her name was. And she's like, oh hey, I didn't know you'd be up. You know, as you know, you hate your job, and we've been really struggling this past year with all these finances and doing these things and blah blah blah.
Oh
And
yeah,
you're
the as
like,
you know
dude,
dialogue.
oh gosh, I hate that, dude.
As you know, like
As you
this
know,
is where two characters are talking to each other. It's like this
I
dialogue
know.
the others should know already.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're like, oh, it's so unnatural, man. It's so
Like if or
unnatural.
two
Ugh.
friends kind of run into each other and they call each other by the entire name.
Yeah.
Like, hello, Joseph Smith, my good friend who I've known from since childhood.
Oh man. Oh man. You
It's
know
like
you
a
don't call me
school
Joseph
play.
Smith anymore. You call me Lightning Rod. You know, it's ever since I schooled you in track and field.
Ever since you
uh
lost your wife last year to in that
right.
horrible car accident.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You're like, oh, that's not related at all, but thanks for telling me. I appreciate that.
Remember that? Remember how you lost your wife in this horrible
Yeah.
car accident?
Oh yeah, I do remember that. Yeah, I do. It's like that's why I started this nonprofit for people who lost their wives in car accidents. You know, it's really been struggling nowadays, especially with the
Yes, yes, I do know, especially since you put me in charge of it as the manager.
right. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh.
It's like
Yeah.
it is know everything. Like, why are you talking to each other like this? You know each
I
other
know.
is
Yeah. That's like I know this actually might be a really hot take, but Oppenheimer did that like really bad. I don't really like Oppenheimer, if I'm being totally honest. I thought it was like it was so much like to me it felt like a lot of like just kind of taking in of information, and it was less of like character building. And I think also the way they did the trailer to me was like they had all these different celebrities and stuff. But like Josh Peck, for example, was in the movie. But like his
yeah, it was like a
line,
lot of random celebrities in there.
yeah,
I
it's
don't know.
like yeah, and like in his line in the movie, I believe was uh, Ooh, yeah.
He was there to show up.
I know. And then you press the button and you're like, I don't know. Anyway, so I don't know. I didn't really like Oppenheimer. That might be a video I do. And I mean, I don't know. I also thought this also might be another a hot take, but I also thought Black Panther was a pretty horrendous movie. Um,
I
but
think I fell asleep during that movie.
what's that?
I think I fell asleep during the
Oh,
Black
during Black
Panther
Panther,
movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, rightfully so. It's not great. But yeah, but I think like story. I don't know. I think people like really like good stories. You know, like if you're telling a story of like something that happened at the office or something that happened, you know, just drama at work. It's like we love that. Like we love that. Like it's the tea, you know, it's everything you'd want,
Yeah,
right?
personal drama. Yeah.
Yeah, like it makes everything exciting. It's like I mean, that's why I mean reality TV shows in the early 2000s were just insane because of this, you know. Um, but like I don't know. I mean, I feel like in today's climate, it's like it's I think there's a lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as like the community of writing and stuff like that, or in movies or whatever, there seems to be such a fear of like, I don't know, like offending someone, which is like weird because I don't know, like the people who would be offended by those things are such a small percentage of people that don't matter. Like I guess I just have a hard time understanding why they would like curate their like storytelling to
To
like
scream really
less.
loudly.
Yeah, it's like I don't understand why they would do that, I guess. You know, I just have a hard time understanding it. Because like it's not like they're the
Also,
ones
there's
giving the money, you know.
also there's
Yeah.
kind of an epidemic of like creators, like these fledgling creators who are like this Zoomers, people who have never been because it was like they grew up in this coddled generation, this coddled surroundings with safe
Mm-hmm.
spaces,
Right.
play-doh, treat like kids, they're all infantilized. They're treated like kids all the way up into their 20s and college years. Like they just told they're geniuses over and over and over again, never giving
Right.
any challenge. If you're never given a challenge as a creator, you never grow as one. And so
Exactly.
you,
Yeah.
if you don't have a classroom or a teacher or environment who's willing to say, "Hey, this sucks, do it again," you will not grow as a creator. If you just told you're a genius, you'll think you're a genius, and then you'll get out into the real world and you produce something that you think is phenomenal because you think you're just like this prodigy.
Yep.
It was
Yep.
like, oh, it sucks,
Yep.
and of course because they're all self-centered and they believe themselves to be like the next coming of Alan Moore or something. They'll say, "Oh, you it can't suck. You must be sexist or you must be
Right.
racist or something." And it doesn't,
Right.
and so they do that. They think because they complain about capitalism or Trump in their little story that they must be this genius.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I see this a lot with the video essays and everything, where as long as the story has a theme in it, it's a good story because if it's a theme they like, it's good. The thing
Right.
is, the craft is a huge part of that.
Mm-hmm.
I can just stay on the stage and just yell at you, "War is bad." I could do that. It's real easy, but it's not very interesting. Or I can have a guy make a story about like a young kid who grew up in this home of his dad was a soldier and he's gone through many generations of soldier and now he
Mm-hmm.
has to now he thinks he's going to go off to be a soldier and then he experiences war and then he has to like he hits that wall where he's like, it was this actually right? Is being a
Right.
soldier like something I wanted? Like you can go into that, like you experience the horrors of war and like the war, you get the message of war is bad that way. But now we have a lot of these coddled creators who will take lots and lots of money, think themselves geniuses, and will pump out this slock that is like, did
Right.
you know war is bad?
Right.
And then we're supposed to all clap and say, whoa, really? War is bad? Whoa.
Right, yeah. Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't, it's like, I mean, if you think about going to the gym, right? It's like, imagine if you went to the bench press and just put on 300 pounds and then you
I ran
go,
away.
yeah, it's like, and you go and try and push it up and you're like, oh, well, it's not my fault. It's, you know, there's something wrong with the weights, you know? You're like, well, no, there's not. It's like, that's like, you just haven't gotten strong yet. And like, sure, you could get to the point where you're at this incredible store or whatever, but you're not going to start there. Like, it's going to be bad. Like, it's going to be really bad. And you're going to be weak. Like, you're going to be, uh story structurally weak. Like you're not going to be very good, which is okay.
Yeah,
Like that's like
I think
everyone
that's
starts
kind of
at,
what
you know.
what Mary Sue type stories do. They actually they're not harmless. They actually damage you, especially if like
Mm,
they carry out the ideal that they want. Like they want to make these Mary Sues to inspire little girls or whatever. They say this, but what Mary Sue stories do is they make you think that, oh, a good person, a good hero can just do whatever
right.
immediately, or you're just good at everything. Which what happens when you meet reality? and
Right.
you do try something that you want to do and you're not
Yep.
immediately good at it. You're like, oh, I must suck at this. I shouldn't try it anymore.
Hmm.
That's not inspiration. That's inspiration is okay. This guy struggled. Like he stepped into this new thing and he struggled. He was at the bottom of the rung. Everyone made fun of him, but he kept going and he
Right.
overcame it and he became a hero. He won like a race or whatever. Or this person stepped into a race car, never having seen it before, won like the Grand Prix in the first
Right.
try.
Oh, yeah.
And if I don't do that, then I guess I'm not good. It's
Right.
a very bad message, actually.
Yeah. No, I agree. Also, I just got a notification that says I have less than a minute on this little free Zoom thing that I have for this 40-minute Zoom thing.
Okay,
So if it does end in like 10 seconds or something, I'll if you don't mind, this will like close and I'll just send you another link and then we'll just get like the last 5 minutes of like just kind of conclude everything. Is that okay? Or what do
sounds
you
good.
think? Okay,
Sounds good.
cool. Actually, let's just I would just feel better if we just did that now. Would that be okay if I just sent you
That'll
another
be
link?
fine.
Okay,
Be
sweet. All right.
fine.
I'll see you in like 2 seconds.
All right, sounds good.
All right. See ya.